Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. With the good rains we've had and continued high prices, we noticed quite a bit of optimism this week at the preconditioning sale at the OKC West stockyards. SUNUP's Dave Deacon has more.
It sounds much like any other auction in the past, but the numbers are a bit bigger this year. This is the newly rebuilt OKC West stockyard, and these cattle are part of the OQBN sale, meaning they've been weaned and vaccinated for 45 days prior to the sale.
This protocol isn't just pulled out of the air, it's a research-based protocol.
Preconditioning programs like the OQBN are built to improve the cattle that are going to the sale barn or leaving it.
The idea, and this year more than ever, is the fact that we're helping both the buyer and the seller. So the seller on the ranch is getting gain on those calves, record high value of gains, well over $1 right now, and they're putting those pounds on at the ranch. And then the buyer is able to purchase those cattle, take those cattle home. They've already had the vaccinations. They've already been off the cow for at least 45 days. And then one of the major benefits of these calves is as soon as they get home, they're able to eat from a feed bunk. And so we're able to put 2 to 2.5 pounds a day on them almost instantly, where with some unweaned calves, it may take closer to 2 to 3 weeks to actually get to that weight gain, which is really valuable.
Well, Daryl, cattle prices are at a premium right now. What are you seeing out there?
You know, the feeder cattle prices have held up well this fall. They've actually increased for these lightweight calves. You know, obviously numbers are down. Demand is fairly strong. We've got some decent wheat pasture coming on this fall. So, you know, these markets are just incredibly strong. We've seen, you know, the heavier weight feeders have dropped just a little bit, but the lightweight calves have actually increased this fall.
And we're in the premium sale season. What are the numbers looking like right now?
You know, we're just kind of kicking off our OQBN sales this fall. It looks like those markets are very strong. You know, you look at these record prices, and a producer might be tempted to say, well, you know, why will we see much premium on these preconditioned cattle? But the other way to look at it is from the buyer's perspective, it's a matter of risk. And the biggest risk, of course, is the health status of these animals. So, you know, it looks like the buyers are going to be more than willing to pay a premium for these calves to make sure that they are getting something with good health status that they know a little bit more about.
Especially going into a possibly cold winter this year.
Well, you know, fall, anything can happen. And so, you know, wet conditions, we could see a lot of cold weather. You really just can't take a chance given the amount of money that these animals are costing right now.
And of course, speaking of wet conditions, parts of Oklahoma got up to 2 inches of rain over the past week. How's pasture looking? You know,
it was a really good, timely rain. It was quite widespread. Much of the state enjoyed, you know, that 1 to 2 inch rain this time of the year. The wheat pasture really needed it in many cases. So it was, again, very timely from that standpoint. This time of the year, we don't have the kind of temperature, so the moisture is actually going to be very efficiently used. It's going to go in the ground. It'll stay in the soil moisture. So this was a very, very good rain from the standpoint of our winter grazing.
So forage potential is up, say, over a couple of years ago whenever we were begging for hay.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we're in generally, I mean, all year we've been in better forage shape, but in terms of winter grazing, we got the wheat in early this year. You know, it's been kind of touch and go as far as having moisture, but we've gotten it when we needed it, and this was another example of that. So we're in really pretty good shape now for some good winter grazing.
Okay, thank you much, Daryl Pill. We'll let you get back to the numbers out there. Daryl Pill, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. Most of us in Oklahoma started the week off with a great rain. A 3-day rainfall map from Sunday through Wednesday shows how widespread and even this rain was. The green areas had between an inch on the low end to close to 2.5 inches at the high end. The highest Mesonet sites were Ketchum Ranch in Stevens County and Pawnee in Pawnee County. Both collected 2 32/100 inches of rain. The blue areas had less than an inch. The white areas in the Panhandle came up short with no recorded rainfall. The morning of November 1st was a cold one. Most Mesonet sites in Oklahoma had lows below freezing. Oilton had the most hours below freezing, 12 hours. The lowest air temperature at Oilton was 22 degrees. Bristow and Nowata also had 22-degree lows. The cooler air and rain have dropped soil temperatures into the 50s for much of the state. Averages for the 3 days from Sunday through Tuesday at 4 inches under bare soil range from 52 at Miami, Pryor, and Skiatook to 62 at Apache. Here's Gary with an October wrap-up and a look ahead.
Thanks, Al, and good morning, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. Let's jump right into it and take a look at the newest U.S. Drought Monitor map. We did see some improvements from the rains Al mentioned. Now, we might see more improvements on next week's map after we can assess how it affected some of the impacted areas and some of those other impacts like deeper soil moisture and also the level of farm ponds. So this map is not necessarily the end of what the improvements are from last week's rainfall. And we are seeing encouraging news from the Climate Prediction Center's November precipitation outlook, especially across southern Oklahoma, where we see greatly increased odds of above normal precipitation. And when we see above normal precipitation, across the entire state, but especially across that southern region. Now that outlook does lead to a somewhat optimistic U.S. monthly drought outlook for November from the Climate Prediction Center. We see for the eastern, basically half of the state, drought remains, but does improve somewhat. In some areas, drought removal is likely along the extreme eastern edge. Now for the western third of the state, especially up into northwestern and also north central Oklahoma, they still see drought persisting or intensifying, so that's certainly not good news. So now we need more rainfall and hopefully not another month between big rain events like we saw this last time. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Joining us once again, Kim Anderson, our grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University. Kim, the last few weeks as we've looked at the wheat contracts, there has been a lot of movement. We've been sitting right around that $6. Where do you see that moving?
I think wheat prices are going to move sideways for the next couple of weeks. You can go back to mid-June when we started the down pattern. We've got down. I think we've broken that downtrend. Prices moved up to that $6 level. We talked about needing to break that and to get an uptrend, you got to break $6.20. We haven't been able to do that. You look at the last 16 trading days, 8 above 6. 8 below 6, and then we're down near 580 right now. And if we break 580, we're going to go down and test 550. I think the best thing that can happen over the next couple of weeks is a sideways move, hopefully between 580 and $6.20.
All right, now there's some harvest going on with soybeans in the state right now. Let's talk about that market.
Well, the soybean market also had a downtrend. I think that downtrend's been broke. I think in soybeans you've got a short run uptrend. Right now, they bottomed out on the January contract for beans at $9.12. They peaked out around $10.60. $10.20 to $9.85 is probably the range they're going to trade in. It's more with the Monday's report will determine where the beans will continue to go up or go down.
All right, now we've talked about wheat, we've talked about beans, we got to talk about corn next.
Corn also had a downtrend. Downtrend on corn was also broken. We've also got an uptrend, a short run uptrend established in corn. It's kind of moving sideways, but the market's waiting on the WASDE report that comes out next Monday to see what USDA does with the yields. I think that with corn, there's more hope with corn and beans for higher prices. Corn's trading between $3.20 and $3.80. Need to break that $3.80 to continue the uptrend. Right now, it's moving sideways between $3.40 and $3.60, and that's on the December corn contract that we're talking about here. So I think there's more hope for beans and for corn than there is for wheat right now.
All right, now I'm going to be a little bit mean to you here. I'm going to ask you to predict the future. Let's talk about each of those. And what are the odds they're going to be moving back up?
Well, I think for wheat, the odds are relatively slim because we've got more than adequate world stocks, and the other thing is, and I think we've probably got limited moves up in corn and beans. We got a lot of corn stalks and higher bean stocks. A big problem I think we're facing is transportation, and that's moving the product from the interior to the export market. It's difficult to get barge, it's difficult to get rail cars right now, and there's additional risk in moving that product from the interior to the export. And I think our merchandisers are, because of that risk, are a little hesitant to contract future delivery of the product at the port.
Now help me out here, because when you say that, I think we're having a hard time getting product to the market. That's going to limit our supply, and that should drive prices up. Where am I off there?
Well, there's additional cost in moving that because if you forward contract a delivery date to deliver at export and you can't meet that date, then there's a penalty. And so that adds risk to it, and so the merchandisers, the grain handlers, have to add to their margin to cover that risk.
All right.
And that lowers the price at the local elevator.
Absolutely. All right. Good information as always. Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
During the fall and winter months is a time, of course, when many cow-calf operators will be culling some of the cows from their herd. Cull cows represent a pretty sizable part of the gross income of any beef cow operation, so getting the most dollars for each cull cow is important. We've talked before about cull cow grades, those things that are affected primarily by the fleshiness of the cow, and those things do affect price. But within each grade of cow, there will be differences in price depending upon dressing percentage. What do we mean by dressing percentage? Dressing percent is just literally the percentage of the live weight that's going to end up hanging on the rail as the cow is taken to a slaughter plant. Cow buyers are really concerned about that particular issue. They want to get, of course, as much saleable product for the price that they pay for the live cow, and so they're really in tune with this business of dressing percent. Market news reports will show us that high dressing cows, those that have a high percentage hanging on the rail compared to their live weight, will bring somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $12 a hundredweight more than what the buyers might consider low dressing percent cows. And those that they consider average will naturally be somewhere in the middle, $5 to $6 different from those of either extreme. What affects dressing percent? Well, the biggest factor, of course, is fill. Those cows that look like they're very full as they go through the sale ring, that have taken on a big drink of water, are going to be those that are going to be listed as lower dressing percent cows. Also those with large udders, cows that are carrying a lot of mud, and certainly cows that have a lot of leather also will be ones that'll be moved down in the dressing percent category. So when we're marketing cows, let's keep this in mind. There's really no economic advantage to trying to put a lot of extra water into a cow right before she's marketed, because quite frankly, those buyers are going to notice that and call her a low dressing cow and bid her down. As we've done the math on this, we just can't put in enough water and make up the dollar difference that these low dressing percent cows do bring. As we're marketing cows this fall and winter, we want to get the best price that we can in total dollars for those cows, and in many cases, that's just having her in good condition and in good dressing percent as she goes through that sale ring. Hey, we hope that helps you as you market cows this year, and we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Joining us once again, Megan Rolfe, Beef Genetics Specialist here at Oklahoma State University. Megan, today we want to revisit this idea of metagenomics. And if you could just start out by giving us that kind of simplified idea of what metagenomics is?
Sure. So metagenomics is a way that we can study microbiological populations in the world around us. So it might be, for example, a sample of soil where we try and figure out what microbes are living in the soil and what they're doing. Or it might be something as simple as taking a sample from a digestive tract and trying to figure out what those microorganisms are doing.
Okay, now those are populations we've known about for quite some time. We have some ways of studying them, but what does metagenomics do for us that we haven't been able to do in the past?
In the past, we could go into these sort of communities, if you think about them like that, and take a sample, and we could try and plate it in the lab and grow it in the lab so that we could study the microorganisms that were present. And the big disadvantage of that, if you think about like a cattle rumen versus a petri dish in a lab, those conditions are very different. So sometimes the bacterial species that would grow in one place wouldn't necessarily grow in the lab. So instead, what we can do now is we can go in, take those samples, and we can sequence the DNA of all the microorganisms that are present to try and identify them and get information about what they do for the animal.
Okay. Now, normally when we meet out at the beef center and when we're talking in front of cows. Today we're here in Ag Hall. We've got a few backpacks with us. I guess this is an experiment to kind of explain what we're talking about. Take me through what we're going to do here today.
Exactly. So if we take a look at these backpacks, think about a population of students,
okay,
and we might want to figure out something about their study habits. Maybe
sure,
which ones are more studious than others. Kind of like we might take a population of cattle,
okay,
and try and figure out which ones are more feed efficient.
Sure. Okay.
Or why they're more feed efficient.
Right.
So take a look at these backpacks, and we're going to
okay,
sample within this environment. So
okay,
let's take out our first sample here.
All right, so we've got notebooks.
Right. So both of these backpacks have notebooks, just like we might find the same species of bacteria in a rumen.
Similar things doing the similar job.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if we take another sample.
Cell phone.
Exactly. So I've got an Android phone here, and you've got an iPhone.
Right.
So these two phones perform the same function, but it's kind of like two different species of bacteria
right
in the rumen
they're
that
still
perform.
quite different.
Exactly. They're the same. They perform the same function, but they're not the same species.
Okay. Now then, all right. Now I've got a pen.
And I've got a whole bunch of pens. So this would be like a difference in prevalence of bacteria. So
okay,
one animal might have
just
fewer
a little
numbers.
Bit.
Exactly.
The other has a whole mess of them.
Exactly.
Okay. And then I've got a big bag of Halloween candy.
And I've got a thumb drive. So sometimes we have bacteria species that we find in one animal or another, but you don't find them necessarily in both of those animals.
Some very big differences there.
Yes.
All right, so with this idea, with that way of sort of sampling things, tell me how scientists like yourself are actually using this to study cattle and study our livestock species.
One of the most common ways that this technology has been used for quite a while is to take samples from the digestive tract, so it might be fecal samples or rumen samples, and to sequence the microorganisms in there to try and figure out what species are present and how that relates to production traits like feed efficiency or growth, things like that. Another new way that we've been utilizing it is to do things like alveolar lavage, where you get a sample from the respiratory system and sequence that to try and find out things about disease like bovine respiratory disease.
All right, fascinating. Thank you for joining us. Megan Rolfe, Beef Genetics Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Of course, every producer wants to take a safe and healthy product to market, but some customers have more rigorous standards than others. For more on how Oklahoma State University is helping these clients, here again is SUNUP's Dave Deacon.
Located north of Hydro, Triple S Farms doesn't grow the typical Western Oklahoma crop rotation.
Wheat, potatoes, sweet potatoes, watermelons, pumpkins, cotton, soybeans, a little bit of corn, peanuts, spinach, and then some turnip and mustard greens as well.
This is really old sweet potato country. The quarter a mile down, I remember when I was a kid, Mom made me come up here, and after the crew was done, we picked up the culls. So this country is actually, since in the 50s, grew some sweet potatoes, but then it went away, and these are processing sweet potatoes. Those were fresh market.
Of course, the harvest process has changed a bit since then.
One machine is called a windrower. It digs 4 rows, puts them over between another 2, and then we have a 4-row harvester that picks up those 4 rows plus 4 more. So we're harvesting 8 rows at a time.
By the end of harvest, this farm will have filled 38 semis with sweet potatoes, all headed to one place.
These are going to Allen Canning, which is in Van Buren, Arkansas.
These are processing sweet potatoes, so they're not the sweet potatoes that you're going to get to bake for Thanksgiving fresh. These will go into a can.
But selling to major distributors and being a part of that supply chain carries with it a few more hurdles than a drive to the local farmers market.
If we wanted to sell to Walmart, we had to be GFSI certified.
The Global Food Safety Initiative originated in approximately 2000 with a group of retailers worldwide, such as Walmart, and to try to find a way to get food from farm to table safer, to protect the consumer, and to reduce the number of recalls.
At the core of this program is third-party auditing to ensure that good practices are being used and documented.
We keep very careful records on what we spray, what we treat the crop with, and all that goes along with the crop, with the location that it came from, so that it's source identified and they know exactly what's been done to that crop. It's not anything that we haven't done in the past. It's just that you're going to have somebody come look and see if you are doing what you said, if your records indicate that you're doing what you said.
Those records also include equipment cleaning and even employee hand washing. As you can imagine, that can be difficult to keep straight. And that is where Robert M. Kerr, Food and Ag Processing Center's Jason Young helped.
Most companies, when they first hear from their customer that, hey, we need to have an audit, the first thing is they're overwhelmed. They're like, do we have to hire someone? Do we have to go get a consultant? What's it going to take to put all these resources in place? And so I'm able to come out to a processor or a producer and explain what it is to be GFSI and what the programs are that need to be in place to pass the audit.
For us, we started with nothing. I mean, we didn't even know where to start.
Jason taught us that you may be doing it, but in an auditor's eyes, if it's not written down, then it must have never happened.
It does take extra effort, but companies and consumers have come to expect it.
We don't want to ship a product that would hurt somebody. And so by following a lot of the guidelines that's been set down, we can feel more assured of the fact that we're shipping a good product.
If you would like to learn more about the Global Food Safety Initiative program at the Robert M. Kerr Food and Agricultural Products Center at Oklahoma State University, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Now to another side of the agriculture business, ag tourism. This time of year, moms, dads, and kids spend time at the pumpkin patch. And as SUNUP intern Melanie Jackson shows us, there's a lot more to ag tourism than you might think.
We know oil is number one in the state, agriculture is number two, tourism is number three. And what makes better sense than to put 2 and 3 together and create, agritourism.
Ag tourism is any activity on a farm or ranch that brings in visitors. It could include U-pick operations like pumpkin patches to vineyards.
Mary Steichen of Silvertop Farm and Vineyards raises grapes, sheep, and grains in Kay County, while Rachel Pickens uses her land solely for agritourism in the fall.
With the success of adding on agritourism components to an existing operation, we've seen people just start it up as a standalone business and be successful that way.
I try to find fun, exciting ways to teach them a little bit about agriculture. For example, over at the corn box, there's a little bit of information about how corn's grown, what we use it for, why it's important. And then over at the petting zoo, there's little things about the animals.
So we found that people were interested in what we were doing, how we were doing it, and that's how we got into the hospitality, interest in doing tours and bringing people here. After they learn some of the things about grape growing, they go and learn a little bit about farming. Then they learn a little bit about agriculture and livestock. And then, of course, everybody loves the samples.
Ag tourism is becoming more popular in Oklahoma. And for the wine industry, that benefit has been to the tune of $15 million over the past couple of years.
economic development, the broader it is, the more diversified it is, I think the better off we are within our region.
Well, a couple of different reasons come to mind. One is it can increase the profitability of the farm. And that's definitely the motivation for many operators. But it's also important to Oklahoma's history.
And I thought it was so important to give back to an industry that's done so much for my family.
Agritourism attracts families from all over the world to Oklahoma. But the greatest number of visitors are looking for a regional adventure.
We've seen a shift from sort of the national park hunting and fishing activities of yesteryear to more near-to-home activities like going out to a farm or a ranch, which people might not be familiar with on a day-to-day basis like they used to be, but are interested in that nevertheless.
My goal was that I wanted to make sure it was real, that it was an experience. They could touch, feel it, and understand what we do, why we do it, where their food comes from, and bring them back to the rural roots. Because we're 3 to 5 generations from the family farm, and amazingly, people don't remember some of these things, and so we bring them back in touch with that.
But just knowing that here, while they're at the farm, they've learned something, because that's our next legislators, that's our next president of the United States.
People need to touch, feel, and taste, and they walk away with a good experience.
Finally today, a familiar face here at SUNUP is moving on. Austin Moore has been a part of the team for 6 years, working tirelessly behind the camera, like he is right now, and often in front of it too.
The drought is having an enormous impact on the cattle industry, and nowhere are those implications felt greater than here on the western edge of the state in Roger Mills County.
And the only thing that's green in this country right now is Johnson grass, which is dangerous too. So our grass.
A lot of your work has been around this concept that we as humans communicate verbally. Animals use all the different senses to communicate.
That's right, yeah.
How do we get inside the head of that livestock?
Well, try to imagine what something looks like, what something would smell like what something would sound alike. It's sensory-based, it's not word-based. You know, I'm a visual thinker, so that makes it easier for me, because as I talk about working with animal behavior,
Today on SUNUP, we're talking about food security and the importance of a safe, reliable food supply. But our American system is the envy of the world. So to dig deeper into these issues, join me in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Austin's got a new job and will continue to work in television. Austin, we appreciate your commitment to SUNUP and OSU agriculture and wish you and your family only the very best. And with that, we say goodbye this week. A reminder, you can find us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. We'll see you next time at SUNUP.